I was having a conversation with myself. And the conversation went something like this. I'm putting in all this work, and I feel like I've been putting in this work for a very long time. So now I kind of deserve a break. As a matter of fact, I think that I'm entitled to having some things just work out in my favor, because I've been putting in work and not receiving the fruits of the work that I've put in. So it just means that it's time for the world time for God to reward me for the things that I'm doing, even though I'm not doing anything at the moment. Now, after discovering that that was an internal conversation I was having with myself, it made me think, when did I get such an entitled sense of self? And how long has this been here? And why did it show up in the first place? It made me think about what I went through growing up, which, is my story, right? Growing up, I didn't really feel like I was seen at all. I felt like everybody consistently glossed over me as if I was a non-variable, though I was putting in work all the time, every time. It just seemed that the things that I was putting work into were not valued by the people around me. Until we get older, and then the things that I was putting in work for, now all of a sudden are the things that are the most valuable. So I was ahead of my time around like the age of 10. Developing yourself, building yourself, discipline, focus, all of these things. So part of me was resentful that the work that I put in at those ages, growing up until now, have not been fully recognized. And that led to a rebellion from the work that needs to be done in order to fully realize who you are as a person. And I just want to say that because it's necessary to acknowledge these points in time. On this road of self-development, the word that often comes up a lot is discipline. Discipline. You gotta discipline yourself. You gotta be disciplined. You gotta stay on the path. You can't veer off the path. You can't just take your foot off the gas pedal. You gotta keep on going. You gotta be relentless, ruthless. Your defense gotta be impregnable. Your offense gotta be supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. You gotta be crazy about it, right? You gotta do all of these things to maintain excellence, to be disciplined. Yet, oftentimes when we hear about the word discipline, it's focused on external action, which is true. You have to do something if you want to get something. Yet, even with that being said, there is an internal battle that needs to be fought and waged. And if you do not understand what your internal talk is, you will never be able to move forward. Yesterday, I was wrestling with this thought of, why am I not progressing? Why am I not going forward right now? Why am I not putting in more effort? But then it dawns on me that I'm having some internal battles, right? Because whenever there's a resistance in what you do in the outside world, there's usually something that's inhibiting you in your inside world. So I'll give you an example. Procrastination, right? Procrastination, in the way that I've experienced it, usually came from a sense of fear of failure, right? And this fear of failure is often linked to perfectionism, because failure is a natural part of life. You not allowing yourself to fail means that you expect yourself to be perfect, Most likely that's something that you never even tried before, which is highly irrational. But then that also links back to an environment that didn't allow you to fail, or that the repercussions for failure were so severe that you didn't want to experience that. So let's say that you go in to talk to a girl, if you one of my fellas or one of my lady friends, whatever the case may be. No judgments over here. I don't care. You go in to talk to somebody that you have an interest in, and at this point in time, you are nervous, but you still go forward. But then it doesn't go well, and then you're ridiculed for it. So now you're socially, you feel inadequate. So now this leads to a procrastination or an avoidance of trying to approach someone. And then now that is inhibiting your ability to progress in learning actually how to speak to people in an appropriate manner. And this exact phenomenon happens in many different ways, but it starts where? It starts internally. What happened? There was a damage that took place, right? And without acknowledging that damage that took place, you put yourself in a situation where now you don't even give yourself the option to grow, right? And oftentimes you will never find this out unless you're deeply reflecting. With human beings, I find that there's a duality to us. And my own duality is the baby and the king. I believe that we are all kings and queens. And I've always said this. Not in the common sense of like, it was good, king, it was good. Like, no, like actual like ruler. You get what I'm saying? But that rulership really comes from you understanding who you are and knowing that the decisions that you're making today are the ones that are most in alignment with who you are and what you're looking for and what is going to be a benefit to your people as well. Because a king or a queen is a servant unto the people, is one that understands the best interest. But you got to be a king and queen unto yourself before you're a king and queen unto anyone else. Is it not so? So who would you then be that king or queen to? This starts with your younger self, right? I'm checking the clock because I got to go very soon. This younger self. Who is this younger self? This younger self is the one that you came into the world with. That little boy, that little girl that just wanted to have fun, that wants to play the games, that wants to experience, that wants to learn, that wants to grow, that be really locked in, flow state. That right there, that's that little boy, that's that little girl, that's the one you need to protect. So oftentimes a caricature of that king or queen is developed to protect that little one. But to circle back to the original point, you talk about discipline, 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 and it focuses outward. But very, very rarely, outside of the mindset portion, do we focus inward on what is exactly happening when we are disciplining ourselves. Discipline does not mean that we are ignoring what is happening internally. It does not mean that. As a matter of fact, your inward life or your inward world is the foundation to your outward world. And if you know anything about building a house, you know your foundation is messed up. You built your house upon the sand. It's over. When a storm comes, you're cooked. You could do all the work that you want to do. I promise you, if you don't do that internal work too, you're cooked. Because you'll just fall back down and you'll not get back up. Because you'll feel like the work that you're doing is pointless. And I tell you this because I've experienced this, where I'm doing all the work and then internally something breaks. And then I just lost all motivation and all the progress that I made. It just felt like it went away. This is not to scare you, but it's to say that in the process of discipline, it's not just that you're doing the physical work, but that you are also addressing the emotional wounds that exist inside of you. And especially, I'm saying that as a black man, Your emotions don't, I'm not, when I say understand and acknowledge it, I'm not saying you live your life by your emotions. Your emotions should never at any point be the driving force behind your decision making. I'm gonna tell you straight up. Emotions come up as a response to something, right? Now, your responses should be understood. But there are also other times where you have emotions and things that just come up, and quite frankly, you just got to deal with it. Not pack it in a corner and tuck it away, because that's something that I used to do. I used to compartmentalize every single thing that I went through to the point that I didn't even feel anything. What I mean by that is to acknowledge, validate, but still realize that we have a vision. Because in as much as that little boy, that little girl inside of you just wants to have fun, that little boy, that little girl also has something that they want to do. They have dreams. And one thing about them dreams is that they do not go away. So long as you have life, there's something that you want to do. And if you don't know what that is, that means you need to connect to yourself. That means you need to be in prayer. That means that you need to be connected to Christ. You need to know what's happening. You need to spend time. As a matter of fact, you need to take that. If you don't know what that is, you need to go into meditation right now. Without that vision, you won't go anywhere. How can you go anywhere if you don't even know what you're trying to get to? You'll stay in the same spot, have no motivation, and that's what's going to happen. And that's where I was for a bit of time. But it really starts with uncovering what's inside of you. What's going on? Why do you feel this way? Why do you feel that way? I remember I was sitting down, like, actually right before I even made this video, I was just like, man, I don't even feel like talking to nobody about a lot of stuff. I just want to do my work and do it in silence, in peace, and keep it pushing. But I questioned it. I was like, well, why? Why am I being so solitary in the way that I'm going about this? It wasn't because I lacked social skills. I know how to talk to people. But even that, I felt a block. For me, it was about that constant feeling of rejection that came out. I just didn't feel safe. So that safety that I was looking for, I wasn't finding it. I wasn't finding it in my day-to-day activities. And that directly affected different areas of my life where I could have leaned on somebody for extra support, but I ultimately didn't. Now, is it a bad thing? No, it's not. It's simply a thing. And the way that I choose to go about it will determine whether or not it's a good or bad thing. Because what's good is that I get to where I need to get to. What's bad is that I don't get to where I want to get to. And that's my criteria. Because that vision is going to happen. But it won't happen unless I'm acknowledging what's happening. There is work that needs to be done. Discipline is not just what's happening internal, happening external, like the things that you do. The things that you do are important. But it's also the things that's happening inside of you that matters. What is your foundation? What is your grounding? What are your resistances? Why are they resistances? If you don't address these things, your creativity also suffers. And there may be a pathway that you have not experienced nor thought about that could actually be the solution to your problem currently, but you're just too damaged to even acknowledge it as a person. Journey of becoming. It's not easy. I'm sitting here and I'm just like, yo, I don't want to show up today. But hey, still got to. Because guess what? That little boy, that little girl inside, that little boy inside of me, or that little boy, that little girl inside of you, it's something that they want to do. And what's the best way to show them that you love them? By getting it done. And that's where the king in me shows up. And we're going to make sure we get it done. Till next time, master the moment.